I think it's going to be. I think it's going to be an absolutely magical experience. I think the show's going to be about magic and mystery, but the actual show itself will be a magical thing. I'm sure it will, because we're all so dedicated and so keen.
It was very clear that this was just a great thing, and that everybody was very kind of positive to each other. There was a real teamwork feel about it, and it was very well put together. I think each step of the way felt very natural, and didn't feel at any point uncomfortable with anything that was happening. Just kind of very energised by it. And when the lunch break came, it was kind of slightly anticlimactic, I think.
And I got in this morning, I was thinking, wow, so weird to be back at Central. And it's just nice to see everybody, and I think that put everybody at ease straight away. And then the first few exercises got you into it very quickly. I've been teaching now for a little while, and by doing that, it's weird to be on the inside rather than the outside. But I thought the way it was structured, everybody felt at ease, and everybody felt confident to just do whatever they wanted to do, and feel that, there's express themselves as well and be as creative as they like.
And because the course itself is drama and education, personally I feel it's much more grounded, more structured. The people that come into the environment have a different approach to, the essence of what performing arts is. What do you want to achieve when you create a production? Who is it aimed for? And I think that has a lot to do with why people have come in today. Different approach. People want to achieve different things. It's not about the self, it's about what we want to achieve.
He was a bit of a computer freak, and his name was Mr. Anderson, and his computer hacker name was Neil.
Get that hand up, John! Get that hand up!
And he was dedicated to searching the internet for a person called Morpheus, you see, and he was also working as a computer programmer. He gets people into his office, and they tell him that he hasn't been doing his work, and he's not really...
1, 2, 3, 4.
Rivers and mountains are caused by our words. Stories take flight with the freedom of birds. Weaving the fabric of folklore and spell. Using the threads of the stories you tell to give life to our home Babylon. Malinda's magic turns night into day. You give your stories of hillside and power. The land has a force and each thread a great power to give life to our home Babylon.
But this is a gift from Avalon. I have made it myself. It is a mix of mandrake and other sacred herbs.
Do you not think that she would now kind of maybe from that come behind and
Make me drink it.
and make almost
Nice. Nice, yeah.
urines. Where he takes urines off, he needs to be a bit more. It's like, rah, we've just had a big power stroke run, and then he runs up and goes, oh!
Yes.
Evil pizza!
Ben? Yes. At the very end, just straight in. Yeah, just start with the mouth. So there, straight between the eyes. Will the king say, fly! One, Tracy! There's no need for this!
The path of Avalon is overgrown and fading, Morgan, as is your influence.
Good. And immediately you do the brain.
For once in your life, can you stop talking and let her take action?
Okay, move back slightly. Can you,
Back to reality with a bump. 6 weeks of intensive devising and making and rehearsing, and 2 weeks of the actual tour, and then it's all back to reality. You know, it's back to hard life. just getting my feet again now. But for a while I was adrift a bit, I have to admit. It's the old cliche, theatre's one big happy family. But in truth, it's not really, you know. It may be a family, not terribly happy. But Merlin's Child, yes, it did seem like this huge community taking itself off to kind of different places. And that's something I miss. Partly because we were all staying in the same place, partly because it was intensive and you don't have a chance to be standoffish or reserved when you've got a show to do and set up in a couple of hours. And yes, I must admit, I do miss the sense of being in a kind of roving community. And all the things you've been telling yourself, you suddenly find out how true they are. Because you think to yourself, we're going to be setting up in castles, and they aren't going to be the facilities you'd find in a usual theatre, and setting everything up is going to be a little more difficult in the rain. And you know all this, but actually doing it for real, that's an experience. That's one of the reasons why so many people, myself included, have been missing it. Because you can't get yourself into a community and then suddenly step out of it and carry on as if nothing had happened. There was definitely a feeling of that there was a big space missing in my life.
And it could have been a family without the mother that you have to obey, you know, without the bad bits. It was just everyone having fun and that sort of closeness and looking after each other without infringing, as well as recognising personal space, that allowed us to work that schedule without major friction and without major, you know, you could people, you know, you knew when someone needed a bit of space, you knew when someone needed some help and some support, and the same with you. So there were lots of little moments throughout the whole thing when you were getting that, you know, wow, wow, wow. It wasn't until the end of that on the sort of the tube on the way home on the Tuesday night that you just sort of went, well, now what do I do? How do you beat that one, you know? And I realised that what I was actually missing was the show, and what I was actually missing was the get out. That, I'd have to say, you know, we complained, you know, about that, but actually that was, for me, summed up the whole thing. It just happened, you know? That bloody tree base was just in the back of the van. It just, the chairs were packed up, all by torchlight, lots of, you know, Adam not going down and all this sort of stuff going on. It was just, that was the moment when we were really, really working. That was the bit that could have been nasty, and even that wasn't. Even that was great fun.
You are deliberately using the venues and the sites to enhance the performance. We spent a long time reblocking in every venue, but that was part of the research nature of the project. And because of that, each performance was different, and it was very exciting for the company, for myself, and probably, I hope, for the audience, even though they may not have consciously recognised the excitement of it. People are deliberately trying to make the most of the site that's available to them. That's a very different kind of theatre, so you are constantly readapting, trying to find the best moment for when the questing beast entered, the best moment for the Battle of Baden's song, which was so powerful because we deliberately worked it from behind the audience, bringing out the echoes that were available within each space, the resonance of the space.
So from yeah, you're right. Apology. Yeah, definitely. Much better. Sounds amazing.
Now, whether it will stand up to what I really want to do with it, I don't know. What I really want is the Avalon people way back off stage that way. And I want Real World right at the back of the castle. And I don't actually want Real World to hit the stage until you're on the second time through. So I want a sort of march through and round from the back of whatever venue you're on.
Great, because each performance is going to be slightly different. We're going to find new things each time we perform. Doing it at different venues, we're going to find different things that we can use. So there'll never be one set performance, but then each performance is going to be different every night, which is good. Keeps it interesting for us. Not so much from a performance point of view, but from an audience point of view. If it rains, people will, you know, potentially say, "Oh, let's go tomorrow," because it's only 20 miles down the road. We're all up for performing in whatever kind of weather, but audiences maybe, you know, not quite up to that.
I just love performing outside and the sense of freedom you get, and I think also authenticity, because the theatricality of it is your environment, and you're having to compete with that almost, but it blends so nicely, and it feels kind of, I don't know, very earthy, and it's a lovely feeling. And people usually respond very well to that because it's a real occasion.
One was Caer Llan Amphitheatre and the other was Tintern Abbey. Tintern Abbey was just so ironic to be performing a production about a dominant religion, pagan Celtic religion, the Celtic gods, and in the show Christianity is coming forward, but it's still seen as the minority religion, and there we were in a physical ruin of a Christian building, and we adapted the show for that venue as we did for Caer Llan. So Merlin at the beginning and the end made reference to the fact that we were telling a story in a site that was a Christian site. I mean, Nick wrote the words himself, and it was something about the old gods creeping up through the stones of the one God.
Out of a time before history, when gods lived in the earth, in the water, in the forest, and not in stone, a legend was born. From beneath the walkways of the one God, the many, our older gods, push up like weeds through the cracks. And a story older than our memories needs retelling by us.
And then again at Caer Llan Amphitheatre, which was the only site that would have looked roughly as it does now in the 5th, 6th century, because it was a Roman site. And at one point when the Round Table come together, the companions were on the banks all round the amphitheatre, around the audience, and they called out their names, Uriens of Reged, Gawain of Lothian, and they were standing on the banks. And of course local legend has it that Caer Llan Amphitheatre is, metaphorically anyway, Arthur's Round Table. And if there was a warlord at that time, then yes, he probably would have gone to Caer Llan because it was a major city, town at that time.
So pre-show at Skenfrith, standing by the river, looking back at the castle, because it is just so beautiful, and you can really understand why the Romans thought that Britain was such a beautiful country and so magical with the mists and everything. And there you are, all done up in your cosy and wandering around being mystic, and you turn around and you see a sight that just takes your breath away. Oh, the other one was Chepstow Castle. I had to climb up into this kind of window thing, which is right at the back, really high up. The wind was blowing, the rain was raining, and I was legs akimbo trying to push myself against two pillars. And it really did, it felt really powerful because the wind was going whoosh, and you know, I was having to push against it. And the audience were way down at the bottom of the slope, and it felt really powerful. I really loved that. Mm.
There were some electrifying performances and electrifying moments. I mean, for one thing, the actual scenery that we were performing in, very awe-inspiring. I mean, not just the man-made parts of it, the castles, but also the natural scenery lends itself to a production like Merlin's Child. And as we were very concerned to try and get in the feeling that of the belief in earth power and the power of nature, and when you see it all around you, and you kind of get the rain, and you kind of get the thunder, and you kind of get the sudden rainbows, that in itself is electrifying and inspiring. And then when the whole show has been geared to try and bring over the feeling of how 5th century man may have felt when confronted with these things, and how he interpreted them as gods and spirits and powers. You can't help but be carried away, especially when you're trying to do some of the incantations and some of the rituals, and you look up and there's a rainbow. You kind of can't help but kind of get the little sneaking suspicion, oh, is this how they felt, and did we do this?
When we had the lights down on us, and when it was really dark out there, when we had the light, when we had the torches on as well, we had the company together, it was just a real emotional moment there. And I've never actually experienced that, without being pretentious, in any indoor theatre before. It was just something that I'd never felt before. I don't know what it was.
With the Leeds Castle, I've written down here actually the pre-show, much as I moaned about it, I was tired, but the pre-show, there was that sense of, there was a real sense of Avalon before we started, and because it was so huge, because there were distances, and you could create a real aloofness about Avalon, and not have to have them all, together because of tourists coming across your path. You could place yourself on the landscape, I suppose, because you had that distance and ability to do that, and it did make. Well, I have to say the weather that night that we had the drenching storm was the best, I think. Maybe not the best experience, but the best performance I think any of Avalon, I don't know about the rest, but had given, and we all certainly felt hugely kind of, wow, this is brilliant, this is exactly how it should be, because it wasn't all sweetness and light and beautiful sunshine, let's all go pick daisies. It was real earthy, dirty stuff, and we definitely felt earthy and dirty by the end of it.
I feel that I have built a memory, and by building a memory that sits in my mind and sits as part of my life story and will forever be a part of my memory, I've also built a place. It's not a building, it's not something you can see, and it isn't just one place. It's a place which is an emotional place to be, because it's a combination of all the places we were. It's a combination of Caer Llan and Coblow Farm, of Skeverfrith, Abergavenny, all the places. It's an emotional place to be, and it's a spiritual place to be. It was about the place we were as a whole, and as like John says, as a collective, working towards something and achieving it as well. That's what John said. So, although it's a convoluted route of getting there, it is a place in my memory, and I think a place is such a vague word. You know, this bit of the table is a place. You know, if I stood on the end of that pen, I would be in a place, but it's a place in my head, which is, when I think of Merlin's Child, I can't sometimes separate things out from what happened in 2001, what happened in 2002, what happened when we first heard about it in 1998, you know. I think it's kind of an emotional place, a memory place.
I think as far as sort of creating the space as a performance venue, for me it was part of the process of getting there, unloading the van, doing all that, and very, very gradually stripping away, almost stripping away the modernity in yourself as you went through the day. You know, you arrived there and you were in your normal clothes, and then gradually, bit by bit, you're adding a few props that you had to put in certain places. So bit by bit, it was built up throughout the day. The process of actually putting the show together and finding the spots, as Bryn said, finding the places from which you were going to perform. But it did give you the opportunity to kind of contemplate the space, contemplate areas, up towers, in small confined spaces backstage, you know, and you became familiar with it. And it's odd how familiar you get with a place, and it's very strange that from the beginning of the day, where you walk in and you go, wow, this is great, and it's all new, to the end of the day you feel like you're leaving your front room, you're leaving somewhere that you really know quite intimately, or you feel you know intimately, you probably don't. But I think it is part of that process of you know, just gradually stripping away and stripping away and stripping away. And I don't think it's not conscious, it's just familiarity with the venue.